Welcome back to Regrexit. Brexit England, Northern Ireland, Eastern Europe, and those good old boys and gals in the US of A. When you get a chance, send me on those Escalades, yeah? I know they're a bit big for our roads. Our roads are a bit too small to drive an Escalade, but I will chance it. And if you're watching it on TikTok, what up? It's me, MC John Ribbs. Don't forget, if you like the video, to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Today we handle a very difficult subject, which is the Israelis and the Palestinians. And you're going to find out why my opinion is that the people who are most guilty, right, for the fate, for what's happened to the Palestinians, for the over 3 million people that have been slaughtered by the Israelis, it's the same people who will tell you, you can't support Hamas because they are a terrorist organization. The same people who tell you they will put you in jail for trying to support Hamas, for showing support for Palestinian people. Because who are Hamas? They are Palestinians. These aren't people who have just floated down from space or flown in from Saudi Arabia or from Afghanistan. These are Palestinian people who they're telling you, you must not support. And you know who that is? It's the good old United Kingdom, are the people who are most guilty for what has happened to the Palestinians. Right? They are as guilty as a puppy sat next to a pile of steaming poo. As guilty as a person running out of a bank with a bag of money in one hand and a shotgun in the other hand, waiting to get into the waiting car that's standing right there. That's how guilty these people are. And they always want to tell you, oh no, everything that's happening to the Palestinians, it's all their fault because they're terrorists. That's why it's happening to them. And I guarantee you that when the Palestinians, right, was first there before any British involvement in their lives, that these was very peaceful people. Just like anywhere else they went in the world. They always went and found peaceful people. Because if these people are very violent, right, you can't take it over with only a few hundred or a few thousand soldiers. You can't take a whole country over just with minimal numbers. And that's what they've done in so many places, whether it's Australia, New Zealand, Canada, any of the new worlds that they found. They went and found peaceful people. And that's why that they knew, oh, we'll just start killing them. We can take what we want. Because the people was peaceful and they had guns. But anyway, I want to show you why Britain are exceptionally guilty in what has happened to the Palestinians. It is Britain's fault, and that's the reason why they're trying to cover everything up and not allow you to really know the truth. Let's start where it all started. Watch this. We'll come back on the other side.
It's been 100 years since the British government issued the Balfour Declaration, a document that would later become a cornerstone for the creation of the State of Israel. But why is Britain celebrating its colonial legacy while glossing over the 100 years of conflict that followed? Let's go back to November 2nd, 1917, when British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour sent a letter to Lord Walter Rothschild, a leader in the British Zionist Federation. Balfour's letter expressed sympathy for Jewish Zionist aspirations at the heart of Zionism, a political ideology calling for Jews to return to Palestine. The Balfour Declaration said the UK would use their best endeavors to facilitate the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. So on that date, Zionism became an official objective of Britain's foreign policy. But the British had no legal authority to establish a home or a state for anyone in lands that they didn't own, a land where 92% of the local population were Muslims and Christians who were never consulted. And even though they didn't own the land, the British would soon control it. The lines on the map were in flux. That's because, well, World War I was going on, and British Allied troops were advancing on Palestine. Just a few weeks after the Balfour Declaration was issued, British General Edmund Allenby conquered Jerusalem. The British Prime Minister at the time, David Lloyd George, called its capture a Christmas present for the British people. During the war, the UK made a number of promises that it wouldn't keep. One was to the Sharif of Mecca, Hussein bin Ali. He's the great-great-grandfather of Jordan's King Abdullah II. Britain promised their support for a single, independent, and unified Arab state. And in return, he agreed to be part of a revolt against the Ottoman Caliphate. A second commitment was made to France under a secret agreement between colonial powers to divide up the Middle East between them. Under the Sykes-Picot Agreement, Palestine would be an international zone. But the agreement wasn't honored later on. Britain wanted Palestine for itself. Then came the third commitment, to the British Zionist Federation. Now, this is the one that the British actually honored. Its ambiguous language created problems, but it was a deliberate choice to use the word home rather than state in the declaration. Each of the 5 official drafts of the declaration were carefully reviewed by the Foreign Office. The Zionist project in Palestine was one way for the British government to resolve the problem of growing anti-Semitism in Europe. It would also protect Britain's interests throughout the region. After the war, the 5 colonial powers at the time, the UK, France, Italy, the US, and Japan, gave Britain a mandate for Palestine. The British government and the Zionist movement made sure it included the wording of the Balfour Declaration. It then became international law, and the Balfour Declaration became a legal obligation for Britain. The British Mandate of Palestine would last for 30 years, a land that was called Palestine by Europeans, Palestine by Arabs, and Eretz Israel, or Land of Israel, in Hebrew. There's a part of the Balfour Declaration that's often forgotten. It backs the idea of a Jewish home, provided that nothing would be done to harm the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. In fact, in 1917, only 8% of the population of Palestine were Jewish. For much of the 1920s and 30s, the British facilitated Jewish immigration to Palestine, automatically granting each newly arrived Jewish immigrant with a Palestinian passport. And as the demographics changed, resentment grew between the Jewish and Arab communities of Palestine and towards their occupiers, the British. When Britain decided to leave in May of 1948, the Zionist paramilitary army was ready with a plan to colonize all of historic Palestine. We're talking about a large-scale ethnic cleansing. More than 700,000 local Palestinians were kicked out of their ancestral homes. Hundreds of Arab villages were razed to the ground, and 15,000 Palestinians were killed that year in several massacres. All this happened while tens of thousands of British soldiers were still in Palestine. Zionists declared their own state on May 14, 1948, and began the process of wiping the word Palestine off the map and deleting it from the historic record. And that continues to this day. 12 million descendants of those indigenous Palestinians refer to Israel's violent birth as al-Nakba, or the catastrophe. And every year when Israelis celebrate their state, Palestinians mark the systematic destruction of their society. So, British celebrations of the Balfour Declaration are as problematic as the Declaration itself. The British government is proud of its colonial legacy, even though it opened Pandora's box, putting in motion events that would lead to future wars between its allies. And while celebrating this British declaration, Israel cannot escape its own colonial past, which continues to the present. Palestinians and Arabs call the Balfour Declaration one of the most shameful documents ever created by a colonial power. They're demanding that Britain apologize for it, not celebrate it.
I hope you understand why I blame the British government for the fate of the Palestinians, for what has happened to them. Because, as they say, Britain had no right to give away land that did not belong to them. You see, as I said, I was saying in the first part of this, the Palestinians, you would have found that there was peaceful people. Everybody knew they was there. Now, there was 92% Palestinian people there, right? And which means that the other percentage would have been a mix of, Jews and Christians as well, because there was actually Jews in that region. And if you speak to, even now, today, if you speak to the Jews that was in that region originally, they will tell you that the Jews who came over from Eastern Europe, right, are the violent ones, right, who never ever wanted a two-state solution with the Palestinians. Their mission was never ever to have that, because as you saw, when the British was chased out of there, and don't get that twisted, that's what happened, because the Zionists turned on them, and the Zionists was killing British soldiers. So Britain decided we was going to pull out, right, and leave, right, peaceful people to the hands, right, of evil, wicked, murderous Zionists, right, who only had one intention, and that was ethnic cleansing. That was their only intention from the very, very start. The minute they got their hands on that piece of land, that was their very intention from the start. And they're still doing it up till today. You imagine that these people had just come out from Adolf Hitler. And then you're telling me a few years later, them themselves turn into the Nazis. They're burning down Palestinian villages. They're killing thousands and thousands of Palestinians. And all this time, Britain are the people who have left them at the hands of these bloodthirsty, evil maniacs to get absolutely slaughtered. And you see, when they say how many millions had left, who do you think Hezbollah are? That's who Hezbollah are, because these people went into Lebanon to go and give Lebanon a whole heap of problems. And you know who I really blame? I really blame all the other Arab states as well as the British, because the Arab states, have allowed the Western nations to divide and conquer you because of the black gold. And you people should really feel ashamed of yourself, because you've allowed this to happen to other Arabs, right? Whether or not they're the same set as you, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. Okay? If someone is killing black people, especially from another race, then I would want to go and get involved. I don't care whether they're Africans or Caribbeans or Aborigines. It shouldn't matter. So the Arabs, you should feel ashamed of yourself, because you've allowed this to happen for 8 decades. Because you've allowed them to divide and conquer you. The old trick, right? What they've been doing to you for over a century, probably 2 centuries. That's their trick. All of yous surrounding where Gaza is, and you've allowed this to happen. Britain left the Palestinians, didn't give them anything to defend themselves. How are you going to go and put these violent people next to them? And you know for a fact, right, that the British government knew from the start, because they got chased out. So they knew from the start what was going to happen. They knew this was going to happen. Unless they're really stupid. But anyway, I should move you on to the next part of this video, because what I want to show you is, what part am I up to? What I want to show you is a former IDF soldier. Because what you've got to understand about the whole thing that's going on in Palestine is not all of the soldiers who are sent there share the vision, and some of them have broken away. And Netanyahu knows that we live in a world of media, and he knows they're going to give interviews. So why does he not care, knowing the type of stuff that they could say? Now, I'm going to let you watch this interview with this soldier. It's with Owen Jones, I think his name is. So you can watch this interview and see for yourself and listen to what he has to say. And then we're going to come back on the other side. So listen to this soldier, ex-IDF.
Hello. I'm delighted today to be joined by Ariel Bernstein, who is a former IDF combat soldier who took part in the 2014 war in Gaza, is now involved in campaigning, activism against the occupation, and for peace generally. Ariel, it's great to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. In relation to what's going on, it's kind of difficult to say, but
Of course.
day to day. Thank you for inviting me, by the way.
It's an honor. It's an honor. And I know these are difficult times and these are difficult things to talk about, but we will,
Let's give it a try.
Yeah, exactly. We'll give it a shot. And this is a very safe, comfortable space for you to speak. Just tell me firstly about your experiences then. You were a soldier back in 2014, and it was a very different kind of war conflict. This is on a whole new level. No question about that.
Yeah.
But just tell me, what's your kind of abiding memory from that experience? What was the key lessons you learned from that experience?
Yeah, so I served between 2012 and 2015 in a reconnaissance unit called Sayeret Nachal. And I was, before entering, we had another operation that was quite large, but nobody remembers because what we call Protective Edge, Tzuk Eitan, or the 2014 war kind of overshadowed the other operation that came before, which was called My Brother's Keeper. In which we searched in the West Bank for the bodies, what became known to be the bodies, but were kidnapped teenagers. And during those weeks of being in the West Bank, just to give you like kind of the mindset that I entered Gaza with, we were told we're searching for these teenagers, but we were also taking advantage of this moment where there's like public legitimacy to display power and more force in the West Bank. So we were basically searching for them, but also demonstrating our presence, our power, and also searching for any clue for anything suspicious, which is basically anything that you decide is suspicious. And so for weeks during this operation, I don't remember exactly how many days, I was a commander and I was choosing homes to enter and to invade and to search, which basically means to enter a house in the middle of the night of a family, flip all the furniture, terrify the family, usually not find anything usually because you're just choosing homes randomly and move on. When the idea is kind of we will display our force and then they will regret ever like basically fucking with us. And doing these missions as a commander already started to really bother me. And I started to question the whole mission that we were doing. But then Hamas started shooting rockets from Gaza. And we are told that we're preparing for an invasion into Gaza. And I come with all these questions and a feeling that I'm not very motivated or not really believing in this kind of system that I'm serving. So entering Gaza was already something that was kind of complicated for me because I wasn't sure I believe in it, and what we're doing. But I was so committed to my teammates or my unit mates, the guys that were serving with me, which are still good friends until today, even though I'm an anti-occupation activist. I felt like I don't really have the option to not go in. So entering already was kind of a complicated moment for me. And every time there is a war in Gaza, we can speak more about what I saw and what I did and what I think about it. But every time there's an escalation, it's not like there was 2014 and now the 7th of October, 23. Every year in Israel, we have what we call a round of violence, which is a normalized way of calling basically aggression, escalation, war, violence. Every time this happens, which is quite often, it brings me back.
The first 5 or 6 minutes of that particular interview with Ariel and Owen Jones. And you can see for yourself, right? This is not these are not nice people who you're dealing with. These are not nice people at all. It's very strange that the only people who are told, actually, you are not allowed to defend yourself are the Palestinians. They're told, you're not allowed to defend yourself. And if you do, it's terrorism. It seems to be the only people in the world, because I know for a fact that probably 80% of the men around the world, right, if their country got invaded, I believe, right, would put their life on the line to defend their country, right? Whether or not they actually like their own country, I believe that most men would put their life on the line to defend their country. And if that is true, that makes you a member of Hamas. So why the fuck do you always deny it? Why do all of the men, right, who will come up on the TV and come up on the radio, all deny it? They all pretend, oh well, Hamas shouldn't exist because they're terrorists. Well, someone run up in your country, what would you do? Would you stay behind like a bunch of cowards? Or would you meet me at Dover? What would you do? Because I'll be at Dover waiting for whoever thinks they're going to come and step 1 foot, just a small toe into this country, all right? And I will murder, not even murder, I will kill every one of you, as many as I can. So if that's the case, and I'm guarantee you that most men in this world think like that. So why are you pretending? Why are you all pretending? Why are you all pretending? Oh no, I wouldn't. Hamas are terrible. They're a terrible organisation because they're terrorists. What are they doing? Right? It's their fault that all those Palestinian people are getting killed. Forget the £2,000 bombs, right, that the Israelis are dropping on civilian areas. Forget that. It's their own fault. You're a bunch of fucking cowards. Too many fucking cowards in this world. Anyway, I'm going to carry on with this interview, yeah? I'm not going to pay you all of it. I would suggest it to yourself, yeah? Please go down and have a look at the interview yourself. It's on, if you just look Owen Jones and IDF Soldier, if you put that in, on YouTube, you'll find it easy enough. So, yeah, so try and find that. I'm going to play you some part, probably the best parts of that interview. Then we're going to come back afterwards again after that, and we'll see what I go on.
The residents of a certain neighborhood that you want to fight in, or do you want to conquer, that you're coming in and they have to leave. They have an X amount of time to leave. So once you warn them, in your eyes, whoever stayed is either actively participating in the war as a Hamas member or collaborating because we told them to leave. So once you warn the population, this area becomes a battleground. It's not a neighborhood anymore, at least in your eyes as a soldier. You did your part, or you did what you needed to do to tell them to get away. So if they stay, it's their fault. And you don't really stop to think about that too much. And most people don't also after they leave the army. And for many in Israel, that's even considered something that's too humane. Like, why are we doing this? When actually it's just a way of legitimizing the area to be a battleground. It's not actually, I don't think it's actually to help people save their lives. Now, going is a legitimate target. Then we enter with much another level of engagement of firepower that I've ever seen. It's completely a different scale. And there's this idea of we take zero risks on our own soldiers. So the way you enter is with very, very heavy artillery and bombings from above, from the sky. And this makes you feel much more confident as a soldier who's entering. And it leaves a level of destruction that I've never experienced before in anything I did in the West Bank. Another example for that could be the way we enter homes in Gaza. Before that, in the West Bank, you maybe invade a home. You're not really asking if you can enter or not. You maybe break the door. You maybe kick the door or do whatever you need to get in. But in Gaza, you don't even go through the door because it might be trapped. So you fire a rocket from a shoulder rocket into the wall and you enter through the wall. So the way we're engaging with this whole area is completely different. We were there for 2 weeks, I'd say maybe 3. And as you're there, you start to see it becomes more difficult to treat the place as if it's just a battleground, because you're actually staying in people's homes. At least that's the way it was for me. You start seeing family photos, signs of life of people who live in this place, school books. We heard of a family that was that one of our units met in one of the homes, and they later died in the bombings from above.
You wouldn't see a military operation, check for suicide belts, things like that. But doing mass arrests where people are stripped and then paraded in front of cameras obviously contravenes the Geneva Conventions. It's very clear that you can't do that according to international law. But what's your sense of when you saw those images and footage? There are also allegations that were obviously taken away, and allegations of torture, that kind of thing. What's your sense of what's happening there? How it's been justified and what the purpose is?
Yeah, my sense is, first of all, there's no doubt that many people in Gaza are part of Hamas, and they might even participated in what happened on the 7th of October. It's not like I know who is a terrorist and who isn't. I can't come here and tell you, oh, I know all of these people are innocent and none of them have done anything on the 7th. But I don't see any security, military logic behind parading people nakedly in front of cameras, like naked people in front of cameras in such a humiliating way. One thing that it makes me think is that this can only help Hamas more gain power, because they have maybe an ideology in which they say all Zionists, all Israelis.
Just a couple of other things. This is really fascinating, by the way. In terms of the death toll, I mean, there's been attempts to muddy the waters in terms of what the actual death toll is, because their health ministries are run by Hamas. But in previous conflicts, the final death toll issued by the health ministry has been validated by Israel and the United Nations and other aid agencies. I think it's correct. We had when Biden questioned the death toll, they released names, ages, and also Israel-approved IDs, because the civil registry is still run by Israel. So we know it's accurate. And in fact excludes people buried under the rubble. So actually it's an underestimate. So it's about 20,000. I mean, that's a credible estimate, which is about 1% of the population. And you keep seeing one of those, I've never seen anything like it, where you log onto Twitter and you read of a journalist or UN aid worker, and it just says they've been killed, but then it says 23 members of their family have also been killed.
Yeah.
Or 30. I mean, I've never seen anything like that in my life. What does that tell us about the military operation? Like, what is actually happening? Because it is an extremely rare. And Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper, did a study of this, and there aren't really precedents for that kind of bombing campaign in a very small area of space. Obviously, what's your sense of what's the dynamics of the military campaign?
Well, it's hard to say exactly what's going on in the highest rooms, but I doubt that there's someone who's saying, oh, let's, here's a bunch of civilians have done nothing, so let's just kill them. Because if that would be the case, we could have maybe killed more, but the fact that isn't how it works doesn't mean that it's completely different. So I think the way, from what I know and what I've studied and heard as a researcher in Breaking the Silence, is that you have something called collateral damage, which means you have a military aim target, and then according to how important that target is, then you allow yourself more collateral damage, which means innocent people dying and maybe destruction of civilian infrastructure. And when we see so many civilians are uninvolved, but our commander, our officer, he had this idea that they were maybe sent to touch the fence in order to test how fast it takes us to get to that point. And therefore, in order to kind of ruin their idea or their scheme, we will arrest these kids so they know not to try to think about doing anything funny, So basically, we had a reason why to arrest these kids for touching the fence. And I was sent to arrest these two kids and put them in a military jeep and drive up to our base and put them in this little room. And it made sense for a second, And then I was holding these two kids, brothers maybe, or friends, and closing the Jeep, and they were crying, terrified, holding each other, and they were looking at me, and they were terrified for me, you know, and I'm a good guy. Why would anybody be so terrified for me, a 7-year-old? And then I realized I'm kidnapping these kids, you know. There was some kind of military logic for a second there. Why? And then you see what you're doing. And then, as you said, when you're at that point, when you're armed and you're arresting these little kids, it serves Israeli violence and continuing the war. Because if there's really no space for both of us, and it's either Palestinians who can live on this land or Israelis, then this pushes Israelis to this corner where they feel more justified with their actions. And obviously the opposite is true too. So if you only believe that it's either us or them, then war is the only option. It's very fertile land for war and dehumanization. So I believe that is kind of something that we need to put our focus on right now.
I think it's a very thought-provoking way to end it. Ariel, that was absolutely fascinating and full of insight, but also humanity, which I'm always a big fan of. Humane insights into the horrors in which we live in. And if there were more of it, we would not live in the world in which we live. So please like and subscribe and do share this video.
The interview is not a very nice thing at all, because as you can see there, you know, these Zionists are very, very evil people. They humiliate the Palestinians on a, you know, they've even got a time of year when they go down and they have special times for violence. You know, it really is truly unbelievable what they're allowed to get away with. Raiding Palestinian houses whenever they want, just humiliating the people. And if they end up killing them, no one really cares. You know, just arresting children for no reason, for touching a fence, throwing stones. They're prepared to arrest children and all this other reason. You know, it is so evil, right? And you know, I can't call out no other country, because, you know, I was born in Britain. So that's why I'm calling out Britain. And it's for other people in other countries to call out their government's part in this, because it's not only Britain that has a major part in this. There's other countries who are heavily involved in this. Right now, you think that, that the Israelis can have all these operations without America's support. America have got support on the ground all the time, constantly. Right? They're using intelligence. Right, they will be using their satellites. They will be using American intelligence all the time to do this. So it's down to people in America to call out your government for these atrocities, right, that are being committed in our names, because we are told you will support Israel or else. And if you don't support Israel, we are prepared to throw you in prison. You can get deported from other countries. We are prepared to go after you. Just like our friends from Kneecap. One of them, our government is going after Kneecap. Imagine that. They're going after a hip-hop band. I believe they're a white hip-hop group from Ireland. Right? So these guys, right, know what these people are about. Right, because they're probably on the other side, right? So these guys know, right, because their people have already been abused by the same British people who are now trying to kneecap. The whole thing to me is very, very sad. It's very, 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 very sad. But you know something, yeah? I want to bring you one more video. This is quite a long one, yeah. But so I'd like you to watch it till the end, right? Because it is quite a long one. But it's my good friend Loki, right, who explains it beautifully, absolutely beautifully. So please carry on watching. Watch how Loki explains this, right? And then we're going to come back on the other side and we're going to end the video. See you on the other side, my friends.
Everyone's talking about Irish hip-hop group Kneecap. Irish rappers Kneecap.
Belfast rappers Kneecap.
Controversial band Kneecap.
What do you make of those comments from Kneecap?
Kneecap is pretty disgusting.
They should be prosecuted.
UK police have charged Liam Hanna, who is a member of the band Kneecap, with a terrorism offence.
So while the entire media class is talking about a rap group who make music in a language that they do not understand, I looked at who was behind this campaign against Kneecap. It led me to an organisation by the name of Creative Community for Peace. Creative Community for Peace coordinates directly with the Israeli consulate in Los Angeles. The Israeli Consul General, David Siegel, at the time when it was founded, even went as far as to say the Creative Community for Peace is effective because they work from inside the industry. Creative Community for Peace has a roll call of supporters which spreads all across the music industry and Hollywood. It was founded by Dave Renza, the former head of publishing at Universal Music, simultaneous to him being the husband of the founder of Stand With Us, Esther Renza. Despite the deceptive name, Creative Community for Peace is one legal entity with Stand With Us, the well-known Israel lobby group. Stand With Us has been funded handsomely by the Israeli Prime Minister's office. This campaign to cancel and arrest Kneecap is directed by the Israeli government.
Now, the Metropolitan Police's counter-terrorism unit have confirmed today that the Irish band, the rap trio Kneecap, are now officially under investigation.
So while the UK police busies itself with pro-Palestinian musicians like Kneecap, there are other people that they should be looking far more closely at. The UK Foreign Office confirmed that prior to October 7th, 2023, at least 80 British citizens were fighting in the Israeli military. Since then, several key Israeli soldiers who hold British citizenship have been identified. Among them, Sam Sank. Sam Sank occupied the role of Master Sergeant within the Israeli military and actually filmed himself participating in the Gaza genocide between December 2023 and January 2024.
Welcome to southern Khan Yunis. We're in a house. Look at the lovely Jerusalem decorations on the wall. We're in central Khan Yunis, eastern central Khan Yunis, in a new house. This is going to be our new home for the next few days. But feeling good, you know, liking the new area. This place stinks. Smell of dead bodies everywhere.
This UK citizen even met former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson in occupied Jerusalem. Another UK citizen who should be arrested by the British police is Oren Anish. On tape in Gaza, he boasted and vowed to kill these sons of whores.
שלום, קוראים לי אניש, אני מאנגליה. המסר שלי זה לא לוותר על החלומות שלכם. עם ישראל חי. אני 74 יום בלי בית, אבל אל תדאגו. בסוף נגיע ונהרוג את הבני זונות האלו.
Another UK citizen the police should be looking into is Levi Simon. On his Instagram, he posted videos of himself rummaging through the underwear drawer of Palestinian women in Gaza.
So I'm going through these terrorist houses looking for guns and explosives like we found money. And every single house inside of Gaza, this is what I say, every single, unbelievable. 2 or 3 drawers stuffed with the most exotic laundry that you can imagine. Just pile loads of it. Every single house. Stuffed to the brim, look at that. Unbelievable. No, I don't even want to imagine what this stuff is, man. Oh, let me smell. These naughty, naughty Gazans.
He even uploaded a video to his Instagram of himself inside a school in Gaza.
In Gaza, waving an Israeli flag in one of those schools where they teach terrorism, so we decided to teach something about Israel. We're here to stay.
We're not going anywhere. We're not going to take your terror. And we're going to start teaching Hebrew in this school soon.
Another UK citizen that the police should look into is Daniel Menza. A video was uploaded on TikTok of Menza in which he boasted of his time in the Golani Brigade. Referencing himself and others in the Golani Brigade, he said, "We are the strongest. We are Golanics. We are the craziest." The same Golani Brigade, which later, in March 2025, carried out the massacre of 15 paramedics in Rafah. Was Daniel there? Why isn't the UK government seeking the arrest of Daniel Menza? Another individual that should be arrested by the British government is Rabbi Zachariah Deutsch. He was a chaplain at Leeds University. Video emerged of him dancing in Israeli military uniform with other Israeli soldiers. A key organization which funnels British citizens into the Israeli military is Garan Tazaber. This organization has its offices in Finchley. So while an organization like Garan Tazaber is able to operate freely on UK soil, directing young people towards the genocidal Israeli army, there are also several charities who are materially supporting Israeli soldiers and operate out of this country. Why aren't the UK police looking into the UK Friends of the Association for the Well-Being of Israeli Soldiers? Among the trustees of this organization, which materially supports the Israeli occupation forces, is Richard Kemp, formerly head of UK forces in Iraq and Afghanistan. Another trustee of this organization is Ziv Remez, who was previously exposed as having involvement in offshore tax havens by the Panama Papers. The UK Friends of the Association for the Well-Being of Israel's Soldiers actually built a swimming pool for Israeli soldiers in the occupied Naqab Desert. That is less than an hour away from the Sidi Tayman Israeli prison camp, where Palestinians have been found to have been raped and tortured to death by Israeli occupation forces. Another material supporter of the Israeli occupation forces, which operates from this country, is Technion UK. In fact, when Douglas Murray wanted to raise money for the Israeli army in a failed attempt at an event in London, it was as a fundraiser for the Technion UK organization. This group helps to mobilize British citizens towards the war against Palestine and the wider region and train them in a myriad of ways, including intelligence gathering. Another organization operating from British soil to support the Israeli occupation forces is ORT. This group trains Israelis in arms companies in this country and has its headquarters in London. Only until recently, those headquarters were in the same building and address as the Community Security Trust, the organization which was taken as an authority on anti-Semitism, when in actuality it has been revealed by Anthony Learman and others that this organization has its employees trained by Israel's external intelligence service, Mossad. Another key group that supports Israeli soldiers in this country is the British Friends of Israel War Disabled. This charity focuses on bringing Israeli soldiers into Britain and claims that it has brought over 5,000 into this country. Another key UK charity supporting the Israeli military is Beit Halochem, which translates to the House of the Warrior. In one night alone, this organization raised £2 million in London to support Israeli soldiers. Another supposed charity operating in this country is UK Toromet. It works to facilitate the funding of military gear for Israeli occupation forces. Through UK Toromet, an organization by the name of One People, which was set up on October 7th, 2023, is able to equip the Israeli military with tactical glasses, tactical gloves, knee pads, bulletproof vests and helmets.
So we're here on behalf of One People. We're with Rabbi Elitov's son, Rabbi Elitov from Manchester. Here he is, Yosef Elitov. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. So one People managed to get 33 vests for all of these brave guys. All these brave guys who are on the front down here near the Gaza border. Wow.
One People's website clearly states that UK Torah is a partner through which people can donate to it. Why is it that charities who are materially aiding the genocide of people in Gaza are not being investigated thoroughly and arrests are not taking place? Israel has, for its Prime Minister, arrest warrants issued by the International Criminal Court for the crime of genocide in Gaza. Why is the UK government harassing musicians, activists, tweeters, and Holocaust survivors rather than going after the real criminals? The same individuals that fund these organizations I have just listed are funding government ministers. Rachel Reeves is currently Chancellor of the Exchequer in this country, one of the most important positions in government. Before arriving at her role, she was given £175,000 by Israel lobbyist Victor Blank. Victor Blank financed 3 organizations that directly fund the Israeli army from British soil. Those organizations are Beit Halochin, ORT, and Technion UK. What other relationships exist between those that fund these organizations directly invested in genocide in Palestine and British government ministers? All of these organizations operate as charities in the UK. Since when did supporting a genocide and those involved in it become a charitable activity? And why is no one in the mainstream media examining these connections? As you can imagine, it is very difficult to publish information like this that reaches a wide audience. We are very fortunate to have Double Down News existing in the public sphere in the way it does, publishing this vital information. So please support Double Down News now and join their Patreon.
To my friend Loki, as you can see there's quite a lot to unpack there. Creative community for peace. Not a very peaceful set of people, are they, really? You know, there are so many secret organizations beavering away just to commit genocide, to steal a big portion of the Middle East. And they've been doing it for 8 decades, the same thing over and over and over again. You know, I say to, I often say to black people, that, you need to think about this in this sense, right? You do realize that could have been Uganda, because they wanted to put Israel in Uganda. So that could have quite easily been black people they was doing this to. And you know that the Zionists will never stop. They will never stop. Britain and America a long time ago should have put troops in to stop them. That's what they should have done a long time ago. But they've chosen not to. They've chosen to allow this to carry on and carry on and carry on when the Palestinians really needed protection from the West against the Zionists, who are evil, wicked, greedy, thieving, genocidal freaks. Those people, how is it they're allowed to have so much power on a different race of people? There's got to be something wrong in that. What do? They go after a rap band for wearing memorabilia of Hamas or Hezbollah. while we have murderers, people who have committed genocide, living among us. See them all there? They were all those guys from Manchester, were standing there with Boris Johnson. We've got people going to war zones, searching houses and going through women's knicker drawer, and just doesn't care. Put it on camera. Don't care. He's put it on camera. I'm going to kill all the whores. The Palestinian people had absolutely no chance. None at all. Just absolutely none at all. Because there's been no one there to help them. Because all of our politicians are corrupted by this. They're all being paid out by the Zionists. Right? Whether it doesn't matter what party they're from, whether they're from Labour or the Conservatives, these people are all being paid out by the Zionists. And all the secret organizations, all the such important people running those organizations. And look at the news feeds. All of them talking about kneecap. All of them. While they're watching some of the most horrific scenes that we've ever seen, that we have seen, right, from since the Nazis done it to guess who? The very same people who are committing the same offences that the Nazis done to them. I just think that this whole thing, right, is it's one big plan by Western countries. But the only thing is they didn't realise how horrific it could actually get until Donald Trump came in and then Netanyahu stepped up the pace. I mean, the only thing that that the Muslims for Trump can hope for is that perhaps that plane that the Qataris is given to Donald Trump is a bribe for him to stop the Israelis. Because right now, there's only one person who can stop the Israelis, and that is more than likely Trump. He's the only one who can really stop them, because, only if America stops aiding them. If America told them to stop tomorrow, then they'd have to stop tomorrow. Britain's just weakened itself far too much, right, to have any real influence over it. Unless Britain's going to say, you know what, we're going to go and put some troops in the middle of this, which is what they should have done in the first place. They should have never ever left the Palestinians to the fate of evil and wicked people. They should have partitioned it off and kept the Israelis at the borders, what they were set in the first place, kept them there and have the Palestinians over the other side. But they should have had Western troops right down the middle to keep. So, because why is it we have allowed a situation that the Palestinians can be in such distress and have people who are so evil, have every aspect of their life controlled by those people who are so evil, some of the most wicked people on the face of the earth. You see, they've got rabbis over there talking about how much people they want to murder. Rabbis. Holy people. Just one big joke. It's not very funny. And you see how deep and how far the infiltration is into our government in this country. Rachel Reeves, £175,000 for her to sit back, stand at the side and just watch a genocide because she's been paid off. All of these people, all of our politicians are just so corrupted by this whole thing. Netanyahu is a war criminal who is wanted in The Hague. But will he ever get there? That's a complete different story altogether. It's a complete different story altogether. Whether or not we'll ever get Netanyahu in The Hague, but you can see just by the strength and the power that these people possess in just this country, the dark forces that are behind the absolute extermination of the Palestinians. It's clear to see. Now, what I've tried to do here is I've just tried to show you this from the a very simple way from the beginning where it started. Right, and then the whole you know, where, you know, where the soldiers are. And then, you know, the summing up by Loki was just, for me, was just absolutely excellent. So, my friends, I'm going to end this video. I really do hope that it gave you some type of knowledge as to how we got to where we are. And I really do hope that more people actually do come out and tell these people Hamas are freedom fighters. These are not terrorists. You need to stop branding these people as terrorists. And remember, before I go, I'll finish with this. South Africa, Nelson Mandela was branded a terrorist. But you see, there was a difference in that. I believe that they was called the ANC, right, from way back, right, which gives you a complete different outlook in how you have to look at them. Because when they say, well, the ANC is a terrorist organization, well, in there it's like it's African. It's African National Congress. So how are you going to put something down as a terrorist group? I mean, you know, for a terrorist group, you need to call yourself something like Boko Haram, right? ISIS, Hamas, right? You know, what's the other one? Right? Hezbollah. Call yourself names like that, right? And you're on a losing battle. If you're freedom fighters, say who you are. Tell the world we are freedom fighters. You can't be freedom fighters called Hamas, because Hamas doesn't sound like anything that we should be calling freedom fighters. So you're losing. So you're on a massive losing battle there. And I want to remind you of this, right? That did you know that the South Africans, the white South Africans, was actually in touch with the Nazis because they wanted to bring the gas chambers into South Africa. That is how wicked and evil these people really are. My friends, I'm going to wrap this up now anyway. My name is the MC John Ribbs. It was really nice to speak to you guys. Please let me have your comments below, and I'll see you on my next video. And I'm going to be knocking out videos like Kendrick.